Reactor online. Sensors online. Weapons online. All systems nominal.
Hi everyone, Terry here with Unicorn Company, coming to you from deep in the hinterlands. With the new year looming ahead of us and the recent events in the past year, I wanted to talk about pricing. Most of this episode was written before the events that occurred, which are going to affect that pricing, so there is a bit at the end about it. But today we're going to talk about the price of the Catalyst Game Labs Force Packs as they sit at this moment. And we're going to talk about how things might be looking in the near future for the podcast and the channel. You might have noticed that since the original Force Packs came out, prices have been slowly rising from the original $24.99 per Lance pack and $29.99 for a Star. The Comstar Force Pack is a little harder to compare, but it did start at $34.99. These prices were set around the time of the Clan Invasion Kickstarter in 2019, which at this point was almost 6 years ago. Damn, that feels like it hasn't been that long. Anyway, the Clan Invasion Kickstarter was the first one that Catalyst had, and even though it did encounter some issues due to the global pandemic and a shipping crisis in the middle of that, it did give BattleTech a shot in the arm. And since then, the game has been thriving when you compare it to years past, with constant releases and a growing community. Fast forward almost 6 years, and with the Mercenaries Kickstarter delivery in full swing, people have noticed some differences in the pricing of Force Packs since then. With Lance-sized Force Packs having an MSRP of $29.99, Stars at $34.99, and a 6-unit box like the Proliferation Cycle Force Pack, which is the closest thing I have to compare to the Comstar Force Packs, coming in at $39.99, which is also the cost of a new vehicle Lance pack. So, as many have asked, how did we get here? Why are we here, and is it fair? I guess the first thing we have to cover is the relative cost of a miniature, and I'm going to be using comparisons to a few different systems to really be able to tell how good or bad we have it as BattleTech players. In 2019, the cost of a miniature and a Force Pack was $6.25 for a normal Inner Sphere mech, $6 for a Clan mech, and $5.83 for a Star League mech. These have all been rounded normally as none of them came out perfectly, and apparently it pays to run Star League machines. In practice, though, you were paying $6.02 a miniature, which isn't bad. If we compare it to Warhammer 40k using a standard squad box of Space Marines, a standard Imperial Guard box, and a standard Orc box, if you use the cheapest troop option for Space Marines, which is the Tactical Marine box, you get 10 for $60, which is 6 a mini. A box of 10 Orc Boys is $58 or $5.80 a mini, and a box of Cadian Shock Troops is also $58. Once again, $5.80 a mini. On average, for a Plastic Trooper miniature, from these lines, you're looking at $5.87 each. Rounded normally, of course. We're also going to jump over to another game line for comparison and see how it stacks up. This time we're looking at War Machine, as it sits under the new owner, Steamforged Games. These minis, in my opinion, are going to be a little bit more comparative in weight to the average BattleTech miniature, but are made of resin, which I am torn on whether it should actually cause the average price of those minis to go up or down in comparison between resin and plastic. So the Winter Corps Cadoran Infantry are $39.99. 5 Signarin Stormguard Legionnaires are $34.99, and 5 Crixian Mechanithral Swarm members is $34.99. So your average troop choice there is between $6.65 to $7, with an average price overall out of the three being $6.88. I would go into other systems, but needless to say, when you look at the average price of BattleTech minis based on the older pricing system, it comes out in between the two. This, though, like I said, is based on your standard troop choice. When compared to mechs, looking at the newer prices, though, the average mech costs 705, and your average vehicle runs about $5. If you add them together, it does skew the price back down a bit, and this isn't accounting for an outlier like the Objectives box, which comes out to roughly $10 a miniature. There's a video on that, a very lengthy one actually, on my thoughts on that. Anyway, so comparatively speaking, vehicles are cheaper than your average 40K grunt, and mechs are more than your average war machine ground pounder. Is this bad? Not particularly. Some people will try to say I'm being disingenuous by not comparing the whole line of each, and I will say that is a ton of work. And as someone who became a meme once said, I ain't got time for that. Also, I fully admit that in order to build a War Machine or 40K army, you have to invest far more in your forces with special characters, large vehicles, warjacks, dreadnoughts, killicans, and all the codexes and rulebooks needed depending on which game you're playing. So yes, the minis have gone up in price. But why? Well, first of all is the classic thing that we all have to deal with, inflation. Something that would have cost $1 in 2019, adjusting for inflation, would be $1.23 today, meaning your dollar is worth about 23% less than it was 6 years ago. This, of course, goes for the force packs as well. If we adjust the original prices for inflation, a Lance pack would be $30.82, a Star pack would be $36.99, and a 6 mech pack would cost $43.15. So, on average, the force packs aren't even keeping up with inflation. In fact, the average cost of a mech should be $7.42. This isn't the only thing affecting prices. The other thing is the age-old question of profit margin and what will the market bear. I bring this up because it is a truth that you can't escape when talking about the price of anything. I'm going to go off on a tangent here, but it connects with what I'm talking about. Years ago, and I mean years and years ago, Napa was the largest car parts store in the United States. They knew this, and while there were some small competitors, they essentially had the market all to themselves. Over time, they pushed this though, and as they continually raised prices because they thought the market would bear it. And other than a few small regional companies, you had no one to turn to for your parts, so they kept raising the prices. Eventually, though, they exceeded what the market would tolerate, and both do it yourselfers and repair shops, which is a big part of it actually, started turning to smaller regional companies. AutoZone, Advanced Auto, O'Reilly's, and now Napa is a smaller fish in a big pond, and generally relies on their commercial division to keep them afloat while struggling against newer companies who didn't push the limits like they did. This is relevant to what we're looking at here, as even though Games Workshop may charge less per trooper, they charge more for just about everything else and have been pushing the market to the edge of its breaking point. Catalyst is nowhere near that. And while you can point to Ironwood Metals with minis that range upwards of $20 a miniature, they are more of a BattleTech specialty miniature company at this point, filling the gaps that Catalyst has, and even getting new sculpts to market faster as they don't have to wait for a manufacturing center in China to produce them, nor do they have to worry about shipping miniatures across the Pacific Ocean. Right now, CGL is nowhere near pushing the market to the breaking point, and frankly, they are doing a pretty good job of managing prices when compared to the inflation rate. I know some people will still claim that this is a cash grab and try to tell you that the game is starting to cost too much. But when you compare it to other games, it isn't bad at all. In fact, it's quite good. This isn't to say that I don't think Catalyst has made some mistakes. I know that they have, and I wish that there were some steps that they would take to rectify them. The first of these is not what you would expect. It isn't the objectives box. I know you might think I would point to that straight away, but what I would point to at first is the box set miniatures. I think these minis are fine. I have no problem with them. but I don't like having to buy an entire box to get two miniatures that are essentially locked in them. The mechs I'm talking about are the Battlemaster, Wraith, Mongrel, and Pouncer. I'm not too concerned about Yenlo Wang or the starter box minis, as these are relatively easy to get in comparison. And quite frankly, that starter box isn't that expensive. Also, Yenlo Wang is a one off, which I wouldn't expect to see players having more than one or two of, as you don't really need it that often. When I started writing the script for this, we were about to have an election, and I thought I would be moving into the wrap up here, but I'm not going to be able to just yet. Because there's something else looming now that will affect the price of plastic in America, as it were, and this is the result of the 2024 election and what it's going to mean for the price of miniatures in the gaming market. The majority of miniatures for tabletop war games, board games, and well, just about anything that isn't produced by Games Workshop is produced in China. This is because of the difference in labor costs and different environmental regulations there. When Donald Trump ran for office, one of his big talking points was the idea of a tariff on goods imported from China. While I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of all the things that this will affect, I am going to look at what this proposed tariff will do to part of the gaming industry, BattleTech in particular. Currently, we are looking at a proposed tariff of 60% on goods from China and 20% on everything else. If this happens, the industry standard is going to go up by 20 to 60% next year, with BattleTech being in that 60% window. Some other games will end up being in that 20% window, which isn't as bad, although I do expect Games Workshop to use the oh look tariffs as a way to raise their prices, but that's just how that works. But we're going to be looking at 60%. And if we look at straightforward 60% increase in prices, the average cost of a plastic mech will be somewhere around 1128. So where before there was roughly a ratio of 3 to 1 for plastic to metal as far as how much per miniature costs, now we're going to be looking at roughly 2 to 1. This right here, this could be the blow to the head for a number of American tabletop game companies who are suddenly going to be forced to increase the prices of everything from miniatures to rulebooks to starter boxes. This isn't going to only affect our little bubble though. First of all, the metals needed for minis made of metal will go up as well, though not nearly as much as we do import the majority from other countries, and we won't get hit as hard. It is when you look outside of that bubble, though, where you start to see the impact that this is going to have on the hobby we love. I say this because if you look outside the bubble, there are a great many number of items produced outside the US, and the biggest exporter of those goods to the US is China. This is going to affect us in other ways as well, as the last time we did this to the rest of the rest of the world increased tariffs against us. It is all one big knock-on effect, and while simultaneously increasing prices for goods produced outside the United States, it will also cause us to have a harder time selling products outside the United States, causing a decrease in US production, making it harder for companies to move their product line production inside our own borders, all while prices go up. The next 4 years will be hard. Hard for the tabletop gaming industry, harder for people in general, as we watch the after effect of high international tariffs take effect across the globe. I know that there are some diehards who want to see the gaming industry take a shot to the gut, and even those who want to see Catalyst out of the picture. While there are much bigger problems to deal with, I want the diehards to know it isn't all sunshine and roses without a company supporting the game. I was there when FASA closed its doors, sold off its properties, and when we, the loyal BattleTech fans, watched while we kept the game alive on Internet Relay Chat, playing games online, trying to keep the game alive while it was slipping more and more into a physical form of abandonware. You think your solution will be printer go burr. You don't understand that this isn't how it works though. And much like games that have come before it, which have lost support, if you are ever to get your way, one day there will be 5 people sitting around a table at Historicon or some other small con, the last of those to play a dying game. And when they pass away, so too will BattleTech. And I don't want that. Now, going off of script a little bit here, I do want to say I did realize, or I did see that Gamers on Games had put out a short where he apparently talked to some of the people at PAX, and they've already indicated they're going to be looking at going not for classic BattleTech or BattleTech in general, but this is just the gaming industry in general. A lot of them are going to be looking at going to PDF only products, and print products will become a premium product. It will become a limited edition thing. So for those out there who don't think any of this is going to affect us price wise, it is. And it may take some games, some game companies with it, and the halcyon time that we are now in with all these choices for tabletop gaming may come to an end. But I don't want to leave you all on a down note. And things will keep coming along here as usual. In the next year, there are a lot of things that will be coming up from Unicorn Company. I've been tapped to run both the Western Assault and Eastern Assault tournaments in February and May, respectively. We still have slots open for Western Assault, and we haven't even started talking about Eastern Assault yet. If you are watching this on YouTube, there's a link below. If you are listening on any of the podcast services out there, I've put a link into the sign up and event info in the description. We also plan on continuing to review products as quickly as we can for BattleTech, and hopefully for some other game systems as well, which may or may not feature giant stompy robots. I will be doing at least one Alpha Strike Aces battle report each month, initially using the Aces beta deck from the Kickstarter. Next month, I will be playing against a force from one of our patrons, Faz, and their Clan Sea Fox list in the Battle of Taco Tuesday. And if you're a patron at the cadet tier and up, send in your 150 point list to have a chance to win some Kickstarter force packs. You can find the rules for these in the Patreon itself. There's a post in there that has all the rules, and you can just post on that what you want to run, or well, what you want the computer to run. Also, I want to say that I will be looking more at the issues that affect gamers in the LGBTQ community in 2025 and beyond, as the next 4 years will be tough, and certain people out there have decided that we are soft targets. Finally, before I go, I want to thank our sponsor, Fortress Miniatures and Games. If any of you out there need something for your BattleTech games, or I think they have stuff for Flames of War now and a few other games, go ahead and check them out. They're really awesome. Link in the description below. I also want to thank my wonderful sponsors. First of all, my amazing Captain Sarah, my awesome lieutenants, Boy in a Box, Gus Arquila, Haley Saint, Nathan Riebling, our wonderful sergeants, BZ Archer, Faz, and Stephen Tews, and of course our astonishing cadets, NB Kaiju, Jamie Valere, I believe I'm pronouncing that right, I'm probably not, K Horse, and Scott Bomer. I appreciate your support so much, and I'm so happy that you all helped me do something I love. I'll also be updating the video credits in January to reflect our new patronage. So until next time, this is Carrie signing off.